For the most part, we see things as lasting, as existing separately from everything else, and as being one single thing. Is this true? According to Buddhism, all things are impermanent, multiple, and interdependent. Impermanent, meaning that things will never exist forever. Nothing is lasting, nothing that is born will not die, everything that is built up will collapse. As Tibetan Buddhist master Sogyal Rinpoche said, what is born will die, what has been gathered will be dispersed, what is accumulated will be exhausted, what has been built up will collapse, and what has been high will be brought low. Multiple meaning one thing isn't just one thing. For example, a chair. Its function is for someone to sit on it. If you take away the back of the chair, someone can still sit on it. If you take away one leg and rearrange the 3 others, someone can still sit on it. If you take away 2 legs and have just 2 left but fix it to the wall, someone can still sit on it. So what is actually a chair? The platform you sit on? No, because if you just had that on the floor, it would be a plank of wood on the floor, not a chair. What makes a chair is all of the different components coming together. So this shows that things, like the chair, are built up of lots of different things, like a puzzle. If you look closely, this idea can apply to all things. And interdependence meaning that naturally things are not separate from each other. Everything depends on everything else to be able to exist in the first place. For example, a tree needs sunlight, air, water, minerals, time, and so on to grow. If you take away just one of them, you cannot have a growing tree. And each of these components depends on another set of components to be able to exist. And each of those depend on other components to be able to exist, and so on. Things are all interconnected with each other. So now that we've broken down from a Buddhist perspective how things actually are, what do scientists say, and are they linked to Buddhist ideas? Science, especially physics and chemistry, give us a vision of true reality. If you break down what you see more and more, you arrive at atoms, then to protons and neutrons, and then essentially to quarks. Most things are composed of tiny particles moving around very fast, creating dense energy for them to appear solid. Why don't we see the world every day in this way, with tiny particles composing all objects and beings? If everything is made up of the same thing, why do we see solid, separate, unchanging, different shapes? There is a discrepancy, a difference between this and the way we actually perceive things. And this is exactly what Buddhism says. There is an inconsistency between the way we see things and the way they are. Actually, if you analyze different species of animals, you can see that they all see the world in a unique way that is specific to their senses. For example, dogs can be trained to sniff out COVID while we can't, and bats can sense and perceive infrared light while we can't. Sharks can see electricity and detect the electricity of nearby fish, unlike humans, so they can locate their prey in deep waters. Some butterflies live just one day, and that is their natural course of life. Therefore, their perception of time is completely different to ours, because 24 hours is just a fraction of our lives, but it's the entirety of theirs. So how can we presume that the way we, as humans, see things is the way they actually are? And why do we keep seeing things and experiencing them as separate, lasting, unchanging, and fixed, if this is not their natural state? One of the major reasons why we don't see things as they are might be because of habit. Our entire world exists because of the habit of perception, meaning our habit of seeing things in a certain way, due to upbringing, environment, what we nourish our mind with, the content we absorb, etc. And this leads us to solidifying things with our mind and concepts, meaning that we think we know what we see, when in reality, we aren't actually looking at what is there. And this goes with everything. It goes with a human, with a place, with any object, and with the entire world. Maybe even with our galaxies and the universe altogether. We presume, we don't actually look. And because we've been doing so since the youngest age, we have a habit of perceiving things not exactly like they might actually be. Especially these days, most humans are completely overwhelmed and submerged because of fast information and constant stimulation. It is expected for the brain to fill in the gaps and presume what it is seeing and solidifying information because it is going so fast. So our minds have gotten into that habit even more. By presuming constantly, we're not actually sinking in with our senses into the experience of what actually is, and therefore we misunderstand and misintegrate reality. Is there any way for us to connect to something that goes beyond our habits and even our species and senses, that doesn't rely on any of these things to know reality as it is? Is there even one universal reality or truth that exists? And if yes, how do we get to know it?